I found out my college fund was gone the same week my acceptance letter arrived. Not reduced, not delayed, gone. $187,000 that had been promised to me since childhood money saved for my future had disappeared overnight. And the worst part? It wasn't stolen by strangers. It was given away to my brother. My name is Lily Anderson. I'm 22 years old, and until that moment, I believed that favoritism was something other families dealt with, not mine. I grew up hearing the same phrase over and over. Don't worry about tuition. Your college fund is safe. Every birthday, every Christmas, every academic award ceremony, my parents would remind me how proud they were, how they had planned ahead, how my future was secure. They even used to joke about the exact number. By the time you graduate high school, it'll be close to $200,000, my dad would say proudly. It made me feel safe, valued, chosen. I worked hard because I thought that support was solid. Straight A's, scholarships, volunteer hours, late nights studying while my friends went out. Meanwhile, my younger brother didn't. He struggled in school, rarely finished assignments, switched interests every few months. Soccer 1 year, music the next, then nothing. My parents always defended him. He's finding himself. He learns differently. Not everyone follows the same path. I believed that too, until I opened that acceptance letter. It was from a top university in another state, the one I had dreamed about since sophomore year. Competitive, prestigious, expensive, but I wasn't worried because I had a college fund, or so I thought. I sat at the kitchen table with the letter in my hands, heart racing with excitement. Mom smiled. Dad looked proud. My brother barely looked up from his phone. I got in, I said, almost whispering. They congratulated me, hugged me, even popped open a bottle of sparkling cider. For 1 hour, everything felt perfect. Then I asked the question that changed everything. So when can we sit down and look at the college fund details? The room shifted. Not dramatically, but noticeably. My dad cleared his throat. My mom avoided eye contact. My brother suddenly became very interested in the ceiling. What do you mean? I asked slowly. My dad sat down across from me. Lily, there's something we need to explain. That sentence never leads anywhere good. We had to make a decision. My mom added carefully. A decision about what? Silence struck. Then my dad said it. Your brother needed help. I blinked. What does that have to do with my college fund? My brother finally looked at me. He didn't look guilty. He looked defensive. He had an opportunity, my mom rushed to say. A business partnership with a friend. It required capital. Capital. The word felt heavy, cold. How much capital? I asked quietly. My dad didn't answer immediately. All of it. The air left my lungs. All of it, I repeated. $187,000, he confirmed. I stared at them, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. You gave my entire college fund to him? My voice trembled despite my effort to stay calm. It wasn't just giving, my dad said firmly. It was an investment in your brother's future. And what about mine? My mom reached across the table. You're smart, Lily. You'll get scholarships. You'll figure it out. Figure it out. After years of being told I wouldn't have to. You promised me, I whispered. We promised both of you, my dad corrected. No. I shook my head slowly. You promised me that money was mine. For college, my brother shifted in his chair. It's not like you need it, he muttered. You're the golden child. Golden child. The irony almost made me laugh, because in that moment, I felt invisible. Did you even ask me? I asked my parents. It wasn't your decision, my dad replied. It was my future. He stood up then, as if ending the conversation. Family supports family. That sentence felt like a weapon, because apparently, support only flowed in one direction. I went upstairs in a blur, closed my door, and cried. Not just because of the money, but because of what it represented. Trust, priority, worth. The next few days were tense. My brother left early and came home late, avoiding eye contact. My parents acted as if nothing catastrophic had happened. They even suggested I consider a local college instead. It's more practical, my mom said gently. Practical? Translation. Cheaper. I started researching student loans. The numbers were terrifying. Interest rates? repayment schedules, decades of debt, all because my parents had decided my brother's business opportunity mattered more than my education. Then something unexpected happened. Grandma called. She lived in the same town. Small community. Everyone knew everyone. "Come by for tea," she said casually. Her voice had that tone, the one that meant she already knew something. When I arrived at her house, she was sitting by the window with 2 cups prepared. She didn't waste time. "They took your college fund," she said plainly. My throat tightened. "How do you know?" "I've lived in this town for 70 years, she replied. "Secrets don't last." I nodded slowly. She studied my face carefully. "Did they ask you?" "No." She sighed. "I warned them." "Warned them about what?" "That favoritism always costs more than money." I blinked. "They said it was an investment," I said bitterly. Grandma's lips pressed into a thin line. "In what?" "Recklessness." I almost smiled. Almost. She reached for my hand. "Do you want to go to that university?" "Yes." "Then you will." "How?" I asked quietly. She leaned back in her chair, eyes sharp. "Oh, sweetheart," she said softly. "If your parents think this story ends with you quietly accepting it, they've forgotten who raised them." And that was the moment I realized this wasn't over. Not even close. Because my parents might have drained my college fund, but they had underestimated one very important thing. Grandma didn't believe in quiet injustice. And in a small town like ours, exposure spreads fast. Grandma didn't raise her voice. She didn't storm into my parents' house. She didn't threaten. She did something much more dangerous. She hosted a dinner. And in a small town like ours, when Margaret Anderson hosts a dinner, people show up. Church friends, old business partners, neighbors who've known our family for decades. Even my parents' closest social circle. She called it a family appreciation night. No one suspected anything, not even my parents. "Your grandmother's feeling sentimental," my mom said while picking out a dress. "She misses when everyone gathered more often." My dad nodded. "She's getting older. Let her have her little events." Little events? If only they knew. When we arrived at Grandma's house that evening, everything looked normal. Warm lighting, classic jazz playing softly in the background, long dining table set with care. She greeted everyone with her usual calm smile. But when she hugged me, she held on just a second longer. "Are you ready?" she whispered. "For what?" I asked quietly. "For truth," she replied. Dinner began smoothly. Laughter, stories about old vacations, small talk about local news. My brother even seemed relaxed, bragging lightly about his new business venture. "Oh?" someone asked. "What kind of business?" He straightened in his chair. "Investment partnership. Big opportunity. High return potential." My dad beamed. Pride radiated off him. And then, right as dessert was being served, Grandma stood up. She tapped her fork gently against her glass. The room quieted immediately. When Grandma speaks, people listen. "I wanted to say something tonight," she began warmly. "About family." Everyone smiled politely. She looked directly at my parents first, then at my brother, then at me. "I've always believed that when you promise a child something, you keep that promise." A subtle tension entered the room. My mom shifted slightly. Grandma continued. "For years, I've heard about Lily's college fund. A beautiful example of planning ahead. A gift for her future." People nodded. "Yes, they've done very well preparing for her," one neighbor added kindly. Grandma smiled gently. "Well," she said softly, "that would have been true if it still existed." The air changed instantly. "What do you mean?" someone asked. My dad cleared his throat. "Mom, this isn't necessary." "Oh, it's very necessary," she interrupted calmly. She turned to the guests. "The $187,000 saved for Lily's college was recently given to her brother instead." Gasps. Real ones, not exaggerated. Not polite. My brother's face flushed red. My mom's hand froze mid-air. "It was a family decision," my dad said quickly, voice tight. "Was Lily included in that decision?" Grandma asked evenly. Silence. That silence said everything. Grandma didn't raise her tone. She didn't accuse. She simply continued. "I find it fascinating," she said thoughtfully, "how easily we label one child responsible and therefore self-sufficient. A few heads turned toward my parents, and how quickly we excuse the other with words like potential and opportunity." The tension was thick now. "You're embarrassing us," my mom whispered harshly. Grandma didn't flinch. "No," she replied calmly. "I'm clarifying." She looked around the table. Lily worked hard. She earned scholarships. She planned her future responsibly. And yet, her reward was watching her promised support handed elsewhere. I felt every eye in the room shift toward me. Some sympathetic, some shocked, some quietly judgmental, but not toward me. "Mom," my dad said through clenched teeth, "we invested in our son's future with her money." Grandma replied, "It was family money," my brother snapped. Grandma turned to him slowly. "Then why wasn't family consulted?" That hit harder than anything else, because fairness isn't about amounts. It's about voice. One of the guests, my dad's longtime business associate, leaned forward. "Is this true?" he asked carefully. My dad looked cornered. "Yes," he admitted. Murmurs began. Small-town murmurs. The kind that don't fade. Grandma took a slow sip of her tea. "I simply believe," she said gently, "that when you take something from one child to fund another, you should be prepared to explain that choice publicly." Publicly. That was the key. Because my parents cared deeply about reputation, church leadership, community respect, professional trust. And now, the narrative had shifted. They weren't the model planners anymore. They were the parents who redirected one child's future without consent. Dinner ended shortly after that. Guests left quietly. Polite smiles strained, whispers already forming. In the kitchen afterward, the explosion came. "How dare you!" my mom hissed at Grandma. "How dare I what?" she replied calmly. "Air private matters publicly?" It stopped being private when it became unfair. My dad looked at me then, not angry, just exposed. "You asked her to do this?" he demanded. "No," I said honestly. "She invited me for tea, that's all." Grandma stood firm. "You made a decision in secrecy," she told them. "I corrected it in daylight." My brother stormed out first, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the glassware. My mom followed. My dad lingered for a moment. "You've damaged our reputation," he said quietly to Grandma. She held his gaze. "No," she said softly. "You did." When they were gone, I sat at the table in silence. My heart was racing, not from fear, from something else. Relief. "Was that necessary?" I asked gently. Grandma looked at me thoughtfully. "Do you regret it?" I considered that carefully. "No," I admitted. She nodded. "Then it was necessary. But now everyone knows." "Yes," she said calmly. "And now they can't pretend they didn't." I looked at her closely. "You're not finished, are you?" A slow smile crossed her face. "Oh no, sweetheart," she replied. "This was just the introduction. Because in a town where reputation is currency, exposure is power, and Grandma had just opened the first chapter. By the next morning, the entire town knew. Not the exaggerated version, not the whisper-distorted rumor. The exact number, 18,700,000 yuan. And the fact that it had been taken from one child's college fund to finance the other's business opportunity. Small towns don't need social media to spread news. They have coffee shops, church parking lots, air salon, and long memories. When I walked into the local cafe 2 days later, conversation softened. Not because I was being judged, because I was being studied. "Lily," Mrs. Carter from down the street called gently. "How are you holding up?" Holding up, like I had survived something visible. "I'm okay," I answered calmly. She squeezed my hand. "You deserved better." That sentence stayed with me. Because for the first time, the narrative wasn't, "She'll figure it out." It was, "She was wronged." At home, the atmosphere shifted drastically. My parents were tense, quieter, careful. My brother avoided me completely. But something else had changed. The phone rang constantly. Not for me, for my dad. Clients asking questions. Colleagues mentioning the dinner. Even church leadership requested a meeting. Not accusing, just concerned. Because fairness matters when you're seen as a community pillar. And now, cracks were visible. That evening, my dad finally confronted me. "You could have stopped her," he said sharply. "I didn't ask her to speak," I replied calmly. "But you didn't stop it." I didn't think truth needed stopping. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. Because the version of me that quietly absorbed disappointment, she was gone. My mom entered the room, visibly exhausted. "This has gotten out of control," she said. "People are judging us." People are questioning, I corrected. Same thing, she snapped. No, I said softly. It's not. That silence again, the kind that carries weight, the kind that signals something permanent has shifted. But Grandma wasn't done. 3 days after the dinner, she invited me over again. This time, she had documents spread across the dining table. Official ones, bank statements, legal papers. What is this? I asked cautiously. Context, she replied calmly. She slid one paper toward me. It was a transfer receipt, dated 2 weeks before my acceptance letter arrived. The full amount moved from my college fund account to my brother's new business account. Did you know it happened that close to your acceptance? She asked. No, I whispered. They waited until they were sure, she said quietly. The realization felt sharp. They hadn't told me early. They had told me after it was irreversible. Strategic, controlled. That wasn't panic, Grandma continued. That was calculation. I sat down slowly. Why are you showing me this? She leaned back in her chair. Because exposure without solution is just noise. And you have a solution? Her eyes softened slightly. I have leverage. She opened another folder. Inside was something I didn't expect. Her will. My breath caught. Grandma, listen to me carefully, she said firmly. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon, but clarity prevents chaos. She tapped a section highlighted in yellow. A conditional inheritance clause. If either of my grandchildren is financially disadvantaged due to parental mismanagement or unequal distribution of promised educational funds, I stared at the words. The affected grandchild will receive direct allocation from my estate to compensate for the documented loss. I looked up at her, stunned. You planned this? I hoped I'd never need it, she replied. But you anticipated it. She nodded once. I've watched your parents favor your brother for years. Love is natural, imbalance is not. My chest felt tight. You'd give me that much money? I would give you justice, she corrected gently. There's a difference. That night, she requested a formal meeting, not a dinner, not tea, a meeting. With a family attorney present, my parents arrived defensive. My brother looked irritated. When Grandma began speaking, her tone was steady. I believe in fairness, she said calmly. And I believe in correcting imbalance before it becomes legacy. She slid the will copy across the table. My dad scanned it quickly, his face drained of color. You can't be serious, he said quietly. Oh, I'm very serious, she replied. If Lily's college fund is not restored or replaced with equal documented value within 60 days, I will execute the clause early. My brother scoffed. You're choosing her over me? Grandma looked at him with something deeper than anger. I am choosing fairness. It was an investment, my dad argued. Then repay it, she answered. Simple, direct, unavoidable. You're blackmailing us, my mom whispered. No, Grandma said calmly. I am protecting my granddaughter. The attorney cleared his throat. The clause is legally binding. Silence swallowed the room. For the first time, my parents looked unsure. Not morally, financially, because my grandmother's estate was significantly larger than $187,000. And reputation wasn't the only thing at stake anymore. 60 days. Grandma repeated softly. After the meeting, my brother cornered me outside. You're really going to let her do this? I didn't ask her to, I replied, but you're benefiting from it. I was supposed to benefit from my own college fund. He clenched his jaw. You've always been her favorite. I shook my head slowly. No, I've always been accountable. That difference mattered. As we drove home, my parents were silent, not angry, calculating. Because now, the cost of favoritism had a deadline. And for the first time in my life, the power dynamic had shifted. But something inside me knew this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about whether my parents would choose pride. Hors correction. And the 60-day clock had just started ticking. Day 12. That's when the first crack appeared. Not publicly, not dramatically, financially. My brother's investment opportunity had been loud at first. He talked about projected returns, expansion plans, partnerships. By the second week after Grandma's meeting, the house was quiet. No more confident phone calls. No more bragging at dinner. Just tension. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need to, because stress has a sound, and it was echoing through the walls. On day 18, my dad received a certified letter. I saw his hands tighten around the envelope before he even opened it. Inside was a notice from the business partnership my brother had entered. Due to unforeseen financial mismanagement, I didn't need to read the rest. My brother stormed into the kitchen later that night. They backed out, he snapped. Backed out of what? My mom asked, already pale. The expansion. The investors pulled funding. My dad stood slowly. What happened? They said market volatility, he muttered. But the way he avoided eye contact told a different story. Market volatility doesn't happen in under 3 weeks. Bad planning does. How much is left? My dad asked carefully. My brother hesitated, then said the number, 42,000. The room went silent. From $187,000 to $42. In less than a month, my mom sat down heavily. That's not possible, she whispered. It's an investment. My brother shot back defensively. There's risk. Yes, my dad said quietly. But this wasn't your money. The words landed harder than expected, because now it wasn't just about me. It was about accountability. Day 23. Grandma called another meeting. She didn't sound angry. She sounded patient. That was worse. We sat around her dining table again. This time, there was no dinner. No polite introduction. Just documents. I've been informed, she began calmly, that the investment has lost significant value. My brother avoided her gaze. Temporary, he muttered.